Welcome to the Winner's Playbook with Steve and Josh. Disclaimer: the information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances. Please head to the show notes if you wish to book a free 15-minute call to discuss your personal situation.
All right, welcome back to the Winners Playbook. Josh, how's your week been, mate?
Steve, it is really good, of course. Lots happening on all fronts, and past the baby's due date. The baby's still not here, so his due date was last Friday,
Yeah.
and we're talking here on Monday. So baby's not here
well.
yet, and I think the final end time until the baby can arrive will be Sunday, and then Alana will be induced. If not, so the baby's going to be here this week. It's just a matter of when, which is when and how. So it's exciting, keeping us on our toes. But yeah, it's fair to say the wife is well and truly ready for the baby to exit out of her body at this point in time and enter the world. So things busy there, things busy in the business, things busy at home. Weather's starting to get a bit better down here in Melbourne, which is nice. So obviously I've moved into a new home earlier in the year, and I've finally been able to get into the pool, which is fun. So I went in the pool over the weekend. It was quite nice, and did a bit of tanning, like I know you're good at doing. So it was quite nice. Steve, how's things on your end?
Mate, good. I'm currently in Adelaide today. I've been travelling back and forth to see the team in Melbourne for the last couple of weeks, which has been lovely. Team's growing. I think 80 staff or something.
Yeah, plus,
and lots going on there. But and then we've got a busy schedule right coming up to Christmas. I think I'm back on the plane every week now, between now and Christmas. So you get to see me every week, mate. Isn't that fantastic? But
Great.
Enough about me. And if we talk about this, is probably more side of your fence, I tell you. But the guide to planning for a family and how early you should be talking about your finances with your partner, especially around when you're having a family. But if we kick it off, mate, and if you're planning to have a family, how early should you be having these conversations around finances, and what are some of the things you need to be talking about when you're talking about having a family around finances?
Yeah, it's a good one, Steve. And before I'll throw it back to you and then ask, because you've obviously had a family for multiple years, and I don't just as of yet, so I can only talk from my perspective, but also having worked with clients over many years. In terms of when should you be having these conversations and looking at this as a family, I think it is as soon as possible. And where I've seen it probably go wrong in the past is where people completely keep their finances separate for a long time, and then they eventually get it all together, and usually the trigger point might be buying a house or having a child. But I think if you're serious and you found the person that you're going to be with, if you think for the rest of your life, of course, life always changes. I don't see the reason to keep finances separate. I think just get on the same page. And I have a lot of conversations. I've been saying that. I had one just this morning with a younger guy, and we were going to actually go through and start walking through the initial meeting process, but his partner wasn't there. And so I sort of paused and said, well, like, look, is this something that we should be doing now based upon your situation? Like, are you both on the same page? Are you counting your finances together? And then I find out that, well, they haven't been really together a great deal of time, and probably now is not the right time to get on that journey. So I said, look, just come back in future and let it go, but or leave it as it is. But I'm a fan of getting on the same page as soon as possible. And I think a big part of that is being open as well, because I see it so often that there's, generally, and I don't know if it's more of an older school mindset or not, but there's generally, and I don't think it's a bad thing either, but there's always one person in the household that will take the lead on the finances. And I think that is generally always going to be the case, because there's different roles and so on and so forth. And someone is generally always taking the lead on the finances, but I don't think the other person who's involved or the other partner of the couple should be avoiding it and have their head in the sand and not have any idea of what's going on. And what I mean by that is, obviously, well, me as a financial advisor, no surprise, I take the role of the head of finances in my household. But in saying that, though, I do proactively involve my wife Alana in everything that's going on, and will explain her things even though she doesn't seem too interested. And I'm like, look, you do need to know what's going on here and what we're doing and where things are, because if something ever happened to me, like, you do need to have at least some sort of an idea of where things are at.
Yeah.
So I think there is someone that always going to take the lead in the family, and that should be the case in all things of whatever the family's doing with kids or household or whatever it may be. But I think, speaking about it is the critical part, because I think finances can sometimes also create a lot of tension as well. And I've seen that plenty of times, and I've even seen that with some clients I actually had to not take on board because they were just completely not on the same page as one another with regards to their finances, their goals, and their objectives. So it is definitely a real sensitive one. And yeah, of course, my situation is now going to change with a baby due anytime soon, and finances become more paramount and more relevant, because it's not just us that we're looking after, which is easy when there's just the two of us. But then was a third person, and then get more kids in future,
Yeah.
those decisions do get a fair bit more important. So yeah, I'd be keen to throw it over to you, Steve, and talk about your side of things with having a couple of kids, got the wife. Like what does that look like on your end, and what's your general view of family and finances?
Yeah, look, I think, like you said, it's good to absolutely get on the same page as sooner rather than later. I think that's step one. But also, you can have your own pots of gold too.
Mm,
You don't need to have everything in the one
yep.
basket, because I think that's also good for sometimes for some couples. That's what we do. So yeah, and I think clearly, as the kids get older, things get more expensive. There's schooling and things to take on board, and school fees, and all the kids' activities got to be taken on board. So it's important, and I think the keys around all of this is communication. Understand what you're going to
Yeah.
be spending the money on together as a family, and agree it sort of up front as best you can. There's always going to be stuff that falls out the back that wasn't expected. That's a given, because that's life. But
Hmm.
I think the more you can explain what's happening, and especially, look, for instance, for me, I do control the finances in my family. My wife doesn't have any interest like yours around money. But also, I do communicate a lot about what's happening, why it's happening, where's it going, and the major expenses, and explain those major expenses to her, like mortgage and Woolworths, to be honest. That's probably the big ones when you've got two kids, and the punnets and blueberries. But yeah, absolutely, just get on the same page, and then and if you do that, you've got not many problems, to be honest. It tend to work out pretty well.
Yeah, I think big part just on the same page, being open and honest,
Yeah.
and then part of that is, I think through that it will help everyone make better money decisions, because if each people know what's kind of going on in the household, and like for my own situation, like at the beginning of the year, we weren't planning on buying a family home, and then fast forward 6 months later than that, we bought a family home, had to cancel a Europe trip, and had a kid on the way, and none of
Mm,
that we
yeah.
kind of planned for some of it, but not all of it. And
Yeah.
then therefore, based upon that, I had to explain, well, and based upon that, we're gonna have to make some changes to what we're doing, and money's gonna come out of certain places here. And then because of that, the next 12 months, we're gonna be doing certain things, and not spending as much money in certain areas based upon that. But the only reason that would actually work without causing major disruption to the household is just like being open and transparent. And I think a part of it also goes to, like, not comparing yourself to others as well. And I think
Mm,
that's looking at friend groups, and just really just sticking to your own, and just doing your own things. I think you can quite easily fall into a bit of a trap, and this is where I think it's when there is a bit there's not one side of the party is not fully understanding of the financial situation. There might be an expectation that, oh, we can afford that, we can live up to this, like we can
mm.
buy that thing. So I think that's where it really helps with some of that sort of openness
Uh,
and transparency.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Don't try and keep up with the Joneses. Don't look at what everyone else is doing and think that you've got to do that, or you've got to buy this pram, or you've got to get this
Yeah.
particular thing. It just doesn't work like that. And the people that do that are really the unhappy ones, because they're constantly trying to keep up with the next thing, right?
Yeah.
I've saw it a lot, and I still see it a lot. In some clients I deal with, and it's just such a waste of time. Such a waste of time. Focus on the bigger stuff.
Mm.
Plan for the future. Makes lots of money. Go build a business. Worry about that. Don't worry about what Joe Bloggs is doing down the road, and what pram she's got, or what car she drives. So yeah, that's not the way to approach it. That's for sure.
I totally agree. And if we're talking about cash flow, and we're talking at a time of parental leave. Now I know it's not necessarily relevant to business owners typically, this one. And I always find it quite funny when people ask me, I've got a baby on the way. They're like, "Oh, how much parental leave are you taking off, Josh?" And I'm like, "God, it doesn't quite work like that." So, I said, "Look, there's going to be a few weeks. I'll
Zero
just be, yeah, I'll be
donuts.
working. I'll be working from home, but I'll be around to support." But it doesn't work like that. So if we talk about, for employees and people in that sort of a situation, like what sort of tips have you got, Steve, in terms of managing cash flow in times of, like, generally, someone has the child, and then hubby or wife, it can alternate these days, I suppose. It's not necessarily just the wife, but someone's off work for a period of time. Household's generally going to be short of cash flow because of that, because work or the business that you work for might have a parental paid leave scheme of sorts. Some don't. But then there's obviously the government support you can get there, which I believe is 20 weeks now, 22 weeks at minimum wage, which is, I think it's like circa $850 a week. So I've had plenty of clients that have gone through it and they're earning, $150,000 and now they're dropping back drastically to a much lower income only for a 20-week period. And then it's like, are we back into work? Can we afford to live beyond that without going straight back into work and rushing into it? Then you've got childcare and all of these other things that start getting thrown in there. What are some of your sort of tips and things you've seen over the years, Steve, in terms of navigating that time?
One, prepare, right,
Yeah.
the best you can, because the sooner you prepare, and when I say prepare, emergency funds, buckets of cash,
Yep.
buckets of investments that are just sitting there that you've got to call back on.
Yep.
The better, clearly, the better you do that, the easier it's going to be. The more safety net you got, the easier it's going to be. So if you can do that early, even before you've started with a partner, right? If you do that anyway,
Yeah.
and just create that, it's just going to make life easier. Because there's one thing I'll guarantee you: when you've got families or kids, the amount of expenses that come out of the blue is quite significant. So it's definitely worth preparing. That's my number one. And then just get really smart with your money if you're not already. If you're not smart with money, get smart, because you've got to pay the expenses. You've got to pay for the hospital bills. You've got to pay for all this stuff that you never had to before. So if you're not good with money, you want to really get good if you're going to have a family, because life's very expensive, especially now with what's happened over the last 12 to 18 months with inflation. So get help, get assistance, get an advisor, get someone in your family that might give you a bit of a hand of how to manage money, because you clearly need to be good with money once you have a family.
Yeah, because I think you can get away with it when it's just yourself and your partner. You can
Yep.
kind of you
Yep.
can kind of get by like that. But
Yeah.
I think when there's another mouth to feed and they're 100% solely dependent upon you and
Yeah.
don't provide any financial help, they just essentially take money away for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I think you got to really, like, the parts I noted is like having a system in place, managing your ins and the outs, and for a period of time there, you might actually have to reduce expenditure. Like
Yep.
if I'll talk about the other side of the equation, which is like trying to increase income, which is a little bit different. But for the most people, it'd be a matter of you might actually need to adjust your lifestyle temporarily. And oh God, I've seen clients that I've had these conversations, and then I see them going on holidays. I'm like, what's going on? And then we're renovating the house. Like those things probably don't need to happen at that exact same
Yeah.
time
Totally.
frame, but it's
Yeah.
like priorities and then I'm like, okay, well, because you've now done that, now it's going to delay your
Yeah.
getting back on your investment journey for 12 to 18 months because you've prioritized this. And it's okay if you want to, but I think at least having a plan and not just reacting based upon emotion as well. I see a lot of people do that like often. You said about having a cash buffer. Of course, that's obviously critical, because if you don't have any money that you can just call upon it at any point in time, like not even for a baby, but medical for yourself, your partner, car breaks down, fridge doesn't work, something happens at the house and you need a few $1,000s, and that could be quite critical to the actual house and you guys surviving as well. So
Yeah.
having that cash buffer is obviously critical. But the other part I mentioned is, if you are off work and you're only getting that government parental pay, which is not a huge amount of money, but it's something for 20 or 22 weeks.
Yeah.
You could also look at other ways of just like if you're home, and I guess it's really flexible and easy these days to earn money when you're working from home and different hours. Like you don't have to commute all the time as well. And just in the digital age that we live in, like there's so many different ways where you can actually figure out just to earn some extra money.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different things, like little skill sets and that you could just pick up to maybe just get some extra dollars in the door. So again, there's a flaw to how much expenditure you can cut out of the household. So that's always one. Like review your budget, get the cash flow system in order, cut out some of that unnecessary expenditure. Like probably not going to be eating out as much because now we've got a baby and
Yeah.
things like that, and holidays for a period of time. It's not going to be forever, so we can suck it up. But then you can also think about, well, if you want to maybe maintain more of a lifestyle, well, you're just going to have to figure out how to get more income
That's
coming
right.
into the household,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
it's actually the easy side of the equation, but a lot of people don't think it like that.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe take the opportunity, right? If you're going to have a family, have a couple of kids, maybe that's a good time to maybe look at doing that little online business, or how to create that little extra revenue stream, and maybe take it as a catalyst, an opportunity to think outside the box a bit, and maybe kick off that little business you've been dreaming of forever.
Big time. And what about if we talk about some big expenses? And Steve, have you had any that have surprised you over the journey where you're like, God, thank God I actually had a buffer in place? Have you had any that have hit you?
Mate, I got one at the minute, and this is a recurring one, like extra
Mm,
schooling. So I've got my son, he needs extra help,
yep.
and you just need to do it, right? There's no option. Incredibly expensive, right? And it's totally out of left field. Like I'd never thought I'd pay school fees, and then I pay this as well. So it just snowballs, and that's
Mm,
something probably will go on for a very very long time. Any sport, like the sporting stuff and the ballet and the this and the that, that just snowballs and can be uber expensive. I'd say the biggest out of left field that I didn't realise when we had a family was the food bills. To be frank, because
mm,
I know you, for instance, eat a lot of food because of the size of you, and you go to the gym every day, but the kids, they eat a lot of food. Like it's
mm.
insane. So you think little bodies don't eat that much food? My God, they put it down. So the food bills are astronomical. They're probably the major ones. But everything's just expensive, right? If you go on holidays, it's four seats, not two.
Yep.
Once they hit the age of two, you pay for a full airfare, and they're that big. It's crazy. So yeah, get ready for it. It's expensive, but you've just, as long as you are aware of some way and got the funds to pay for it and prepare, then you'll be fine. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Got any positives to tell me there, Steve?
Lots of positives, mate. Lots of positives. No, it's all positive. Well, the positives are obviously you're seeing grow and develop and become little humans, and that's the positive part. You want to support them and see them excel at school and life, and I think you get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing that. That's where your investment goes to. That's for sure.
It's an investment. We'll call it an invest. What do you reckon? Any idea, give or take, off your head, like how much your costs, go up from having one child? You add on a child, like how much you'd be adding on per week by way of cost. Like say you spend $1,000 a week on average. Let's just
Yeah,
say, like you reckon you could ballpark, give or
thirty
take,
percent
just 30%.
up
That's it.
for one
Yeah,
kid. Yeah,
probably
two
sound about right.
kids,
Yeah,
55% up. Yeah,
yeah.
maybe 60% up with two kids from where you were on your own.
And then if you look at that though, and if you look at that, if your income is not taking if you're not going up with your income at the same point in time, like,
Yeah,
that has a massive dent on your financial future and prosperity and
massive.
everything. So it's like you wouldn't think that's going to be your trigger to get out there and do more, but God, you really got to think if you're trying to stay ahead and actually live a decent life and still build some wealth and go on some holidays, like you're immediately like that's a massive like tax in itself, the kid
Huge,
tax, just
huge,
just
huge.
like that. And you've just say 20 or 25% or a third of your income
Yeah,
is now just gone. So if you
yeah,
didn't have that before, where does that come from?
yeah.
Where does it go? Where does that come from now?
Well, you hopefully it comes a lot of. Well, if you don't have, you got to have those investments, right, to be
Yeah.
able to liquidate, to be able to pay for it. But yeah, given most Australians can't save 10% of their wage,
Yeah.
then you're up 25 to 30% in cost. Well, clearly, a lot of people, that's why they struggle, right? Because they're not good with money. They don't have savings plan. They can't invest, and then all of a sudden they have a kid, a baby, and the cost has gone up 25%. So they go backwards real quick. And unfortunately, within the Australian community, because a lot of our financial education is not where it should be in schooling and universities and all that type of jazz, people are just not prepared. And so they go
Mm,
and have these families and then go, oh shit, what do I do now? And then they end up on government subsidies, and it's just a vicious
yeah.
circle. So it's a problem, and it is a big problem for the Australian society. And this is a problem. We
Mm,
talk about financial literacy all the time, but I think this is a major one because this not only affects you, but affects the people that is in your family being a kid. So it's huge ramifications. And God forbid if you lost your job.
mm.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
a no, it's a real interesting one because like it's just that simple thing of having a plan. And if I reflect on my own situation, like I had friends, starting to have kids in their early 20s, and it wasn't planned.
mm,
And like God, I can only imagine even myself in my early 20s having a
yeah,
having a child. And we spoke about kids for quite some time, myself and my wife, and I just said, "Look, you just got to give me time here. Like, just give me some time here. Let me build. Let me do
Yeah,
some things."
yeah,
And of course, there's never a right time, but actually, I don't agree with that. I think there actually is a right time to
yeah,
essentially having kids and doing certain things in your life. But everyone always says that like it's never the right time to have it. I don't know. I think that's BS. Like I think
yeah,
there's certainly a certain things that should be lined up in your life, and you should have some stability around. Or if we're talking from a financial standpoint, like a certain amount of assets and security around. And then that's what I always said to my wife a lot. I'm like, just you got to let me go for a few years here.
yeah,
She wanted kids probably in our mid 20s. I'm like, look, just give me time, and
yeah,
said, can we, if we can hold off to 29, 30, like we'll be doing a lot better at that point in time. And hey, it's worked out. But I always had that vision in my mind. I'm like, you need to give me time here.
yeah,
There's no way I could. Well, yeah, I could sacrifice now and we could have kids, but like that would set us so far back, whereas
yeah,
in this last sort of 4 or 5 years I've been able to excel at such a rapid rate. And yeah, if we had kids, like maybe where we are now financially we might not have been able to get to until like 35 or 36 years of age, without really sacrificing. So I
yeah,
think there's something to be said there. There's definitely something to be said around this, and having a plan. And God, I see so many people going to it too blind. It's
yeah.
scary.
Totally, totally. Look, you said when they say there's never a right time, there's definitely times when it's not right to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah,
Right?
totally,
Like if
totally.
you're up against it financially, you're not smart with money, you haven't ticked all those boxes yet. Well, probably delay it.
Yeah.
Like as simple as that. Because you got to. It's the thing is doing all this is not just going to affect you; it's going to affect the wider part of your family. And the worst one is your kids if you do it and you're not set up right. And we see it. So it's as simple as that. So you got to be a bit smarter.
Yeah, and the problem is that then it flows down the line. So you impart
Yeah,
your bad habits onto your kids, and then where
yeah,
does it go? Your grandkids, and then it's just the repetitive cycle that no one ever
yeah.
breaks. But if we finish on a couple of things around schooling, we touched on that before, Steve. I'm starting to look ahead at schooling, which is
Mm-hmm,
quite scary in terms of
mm-hmm.
some of the costs that you see out there. And this is obviously something that we tackle quite often with clients. What are the ways that we as advisors generally help clients in terms of, we want a budget for schooling 5, 6 years down the line. Maybe it's
Yep,
private schooling, maybe it's not. But
yep.
what are some of the avenues that we utilize when looking at schooling and covering costs in future?
I think firstly we make them aware of how expensive it is. So that's
Yeah.
just step one. We clearly show clients, okay, pull up on the screen. This is what the school's going to cost. Are we
Yep.
ready? That one conversation changes people's views real quick because people then realise how expensive it is to cover school, and especially private school, right? So that's what we do as advisors. We tell them how much it is, and if they want to go ahead from there, then it's about putting in place that plan to invest to be able to pay those fees over a long period of time. And we've
Mhm.
got many methods we can use to do that, and different products and some great tax effective vehicles we can use. But that's 101. What the fee is, let's get clarity on it. We know exactly what we need to hit. Two, how we're going to fund it, and we show them the pathway to be able to do that. And that's what we do for a job. And then if they do want to get on that journey, making sure there's surplus there that we can invest and go hard at. But it's a long runway paying school fees, so we've got to make sure the money's there for a long period of time to be able to fund it.
You telling me they're not tax deductible, Steve?
Unfortunately, no, mate. No, I wish they were. I've got two of them, so it's not cheap. But look, it's a decision that the family can make, and we've
Yep.
made a decision to send our kids to pretty good schools, and that's obviously a decision we've made as a family. But yeah, look, it is what it is, and but you've got to be able to fund it from somewhere clearly. So
Yep.
just agreeing where that money's going to come from is super important.
Yeah, I think that's the whole theme of today is talking about having a plan. And then I said about, is it tax deductible? It's a bit of fun, but you could invest in a tax efficient way to cover this type of schooling.
Yeah,
And I think alluded to some of that earlier. Like investment bonds is one that we look at quite often, particularly if there's a 10-year runway. You can invest in an investment bond, and after 10 years time, there's no tax on the investments whatsoever. So this is where this type of stuff can be very appealing, particularly if you're in the highest tax bracket. So if yourself
yeah,
and your partner, you're both pushing 47% tax bracket, you can invest in an investment bond, and it's taxed at a maximum rate of 30% year on year. The tax rate's actually generally a lot lower depending upon the underlying investment that you're in. But then after 10 years time, it's tax paid. You can sell out, no capital gains tax
yeah,
whatsoever. Or you could have an investment account. This is where trust can come into the mix. But again, all of that only comes about by having a plan. You don't just wake up overnight and then want to put a bunch of money into an investment bond for no apparent reason. Like, work out the costs in advance. Like, all right, so even for us, like we're looking 5-6 years out now. What are we going to be looking at from there through to year 12, whatever that figure may be? All right, we're going to start actually allocating some money to an account now. Now, of course, that might change. We might be in another part of the Australia, the world for that matter. Who knows what the future might hold? But we don't have our head in the sand, and we're putting a plan ultimately in place around that. So
Yep.
that's definitely the key theme.
That's what you got to do. Just get it all sorted. The earlier you do it, the better. Get invested. If you can't do it, fine. Sit down with someone to work out what your surplus income can be and start investing.
Yep. No, great way to finish, Steve. Well, guys, we're going to finish it up today. As always, 5 stars on Spotify and Apple if you're getting value out of this. And check out all of our social media channels. So like I always say, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of them, you can get us and see us on. Steve's newsletter does go out every single week as well. And if you do want to chat with any of the financial advisors in our business, you can jump on the website at any point in time and book in for a free 15-minute call. Steve, it's actually Melbourne Cup down here in Melbourne tomorrow. You got a hot tip for the fans before we finish up, or not your style?
Mate, no, I'm not a gambling man on horses. I think I'm the worst luck when it comes to, I would say just put them all in a hat and pick one. Might be your best chance.
That's my hot tip. All right, I'll see you next week.
See you, mate. Bye.
See ya.